one of, if not the best offensive teams in the league, this Laker roster. When you look at what they went out and did, Sandro Mamu, like one of the best shooting bigs in the game, like him matching with Kessler Walker, right?
Yeah.
His ability to stretch the floor. And so when you think about Quentin Grimes, this team is going to make the playoffs.
Game 4 against the Thunder, and the Lakers rolled out a starting lineup of LeBron James, Rui Hachimura, DeAndre Ayton, Marcus Smart, and Austin Reeves. A few hours later, they were swept out of the playoffs. And like several postseason exits before it, everyone watching knew this roster wasn't built to go the distance. Now fast forward 1 month, 4 of those 5 starters are gone. Every offseason, teams shuffle their roster, add a piece here, lose one there, and hope it's enough to move the needle. But what's unfolded in Los Angeles this summer goes far beyond that. This wasn't a few role-player swaps, it was closer to a full organizational reset. The Lakers finally confronted an issue they'd been circling for years, and one decision set the whole thing in motion, closing the book on the LeBron James era, sending most of the roster's core out the door, costing the franchise a significant chunk of its future draft capital, and potentially reshaping where this team is headed next. But before we get into who's arriving, you need to understand exactly what walked out. On June 30th, around 9 a.m. local time, roughly 6 hours before teams could legally start contacting outside free agents, LeBron informed the Lakers he'd be continuing his career elsewhere. And just like that, an era ended, quietly, without much fanfare. 8 seasons in Los Angeles, the longest stretch he's spent with any single franchise. A championship in 2020, banner number 17 in team history. Somewhere along the way, he passed every player in NBA history to become the league's all-time leading scorer, all while wearing purple and gold. Even at 41 years old last season, he made another All-Star team, averaging 20.9 points on 51% shooting, along with 7.2 assists and 6.1 rebounds. He led the team in fast break scoring, was their top scorer in the paint, and finished second on the roster in assists. The playoffs didn't slow him down either. If anything, his numbers climbed. He averaged 23.3 points, 7.3 assists, and 6.7 rebounds, carrying Los Angeles past Houston in the first round before Oklahoma City swept them in the second. In the short term, losing LeBron obviously lowers the team's ceiling, but structurally it changes everything. At this stage of his career, LeBron's timeline simply didn't line up with a team building around a young backcourt anymore. His departure handed the Lakers something they hadn't had in years: real financial and roster flexibility. Whether that turns into progress or a step backward depends entirely on what they do with it. Now, if LeBron had been the only major name to leave this summer, there wouldn't be much cause for concern. Teams lose stars and move forward all the time. But that's not what happened here. The exits didn't stop with him. Right behind LeBron was Marcus Smart, who declined his $5.4 million player option for the 2026-27 season, the final year of the 2-year, $10.5 million deal he'd signed with the Lakers and signed with the Houston Rockets in free agency. His stat line won't jump off the page. Last season, he averaged 9.3 points, 3 assists, 2.8 rebounds, and 1.4 steals across 62 games with 54 starts. But the Lakers were never counting on Smart for box score numbers. With him on the floor, the team outscored opponents by 256 points over the season. With him off it, they were outscored by 112. That kind of swing rarely shows up in traditional stats. Smart's role was defense, plain and simple. He was the point-of-attack defender, the guy handed the toughest assignment every night, whether that meant guarding Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard, or Anthony Edwards. That didn't change in the playoffs either. He spent stretches on Houston's Amen Thompson and Reed Shepherd, then drew MVP Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in round 2. Lose Smart, and the Lakers lose their defensive backbone on the perimeter. He wasn't the only departure that reshapes how this team functions. Right alongside him, the Lakers gave up something they never had much of to begin with: reliable shooting. Luke Kennard, who'd arrived via trade and quickly became one of the most dependable offensive weapons off the bench, signed with the Phoenix Suns. Combine his exit with losing Smart, and the Lakers said goodbye to two specialized roles in one summer: elite perimeter defense and elite bench shooting. Both are far harder to replace than a spreadsheet might suggest. And, as if that weren't enough, Rui Hachimura signed elsewhere as well, landing with the Los Angeles Clippers. This one stings a little differently. It's about continuity. Hachimura already knew the system inside and out and had built real chemistry with the team's primary playmakers. Take a step back, though. This wasn't a bad Lakers team. They reached the second round without needing to rely on Luka Dončić throughout the full playoff run, and in a stacked Western Conference that included San Antonio and Oklahoma City. That was roughly the ceiling for this roster. So if LeBron was always going to happen eventually, why let nearly everyone else walk too? Because by the time the dust settled, the Lakers had lost their best shooter in Kennard, their best perimeter defender in Smart, one of their most efficient forwards in Hachimura, and their franchise cornerstone in LeBron, all in a single summer. Line those four departures up together, and it starts to look less like a retool and more like a teardown.
And if that's your gut reaction, that might be exactly the reaction Rob Pelinka was counting on. Because none of these moves happened in isolation. Every single one of them was about clearing space for one thing, and that thing came straight from Luka Dončić himself. Even before LeBron made his exit official, this had quietly become Luka's team. Once LeBron walked, there was no ambiguity left. Every decision from here forward runs through Doncic. When you land a player of his caliber, keeping him happy becomes the organization's top priority. Fortunately for the Lakers, Luka had already made clear what he needed to thrive: a mobile, rim-running center who thrives in the pick and roll, perimeter defenders capable of covering for him, consistent three-point shooting to open up passing lanes, and secondary scorers to take pressure off his shoulders. That's the exact checklist the Lakers set out to fill. And once LeBron's departure freed up more than $50 million in cap space, they finally had the resources to chase all of it at once. When free agency officially opened, contracts around the league started flying and the market moved fast. The Lakers, though, held back, waiting. Then, in roughly 35 minutes on a Wednesday morning, it all came together at once. The Lakers agreed to a sign-and-trade with the Utah Jazz for center Walker Kessler, then quickly signed unrestricted free agents Sandro Mamukelashvili, Quentin Grimes, and Colin Sexton in rapid succession. Of everything they pulled off, one move stood above the rest. For years, the Lakers had one hole they simply couldn't fill: a true starting center. If Pelinka needed to get one thing right this summer, this was it. And it was no secret. Luka knew it, the front office knew it, and every fan watching knew it too. All offseason, two names kept surfacing as the top targets: Walker Kessler and Jalen Duren. In the end, the Lakers made their move on Kessler, structuring a sign-and-trade with Utah that sent two future first-round picks in 2031 and 2033, plus pick swaps in 2028 and 2030, then signing him to a 4-year, $130 million deal. That's a massive bet, which raises the obvious question: what exactly are the Lakers paying for? On the surface, last season doesn't offer much to go on. A torn labrum limited Kessler to just 5 games before season-ending surgery. But in that short stretch, he flashed some new range, hitting 6 of 8 from 3. But 5 games is nowhere near enough sample size to judge anyone fairly, so you have to look back a full year, and that's where things get genuinely interesting. In the 2024-25 season, Kessler averaged 11.1 points on 66% shooting, pulled down 12.2 rebounds, and blocked 2.4 shots a night, numbers that placed him among the best interior big men in basketball. But his impact runs deeper than the box score. According to Basketball Index, Kessler ranked in the 97th percentile in rim deterrence, the 90th in rim disruption, and the 99th in rim protection. On the offensive end, he sat in the 89th percentile in screen assists and the 90th in roll man possessions. Put it all together and you get a very specific type of player: elite rim protector, a screen setter who manufactures advantages, and a lob threat who punishes defenses vertically. In other words, almost exactly the kind of center Luka Dončić has historically played his best basketball alongside. For years, Doncic has turned rim-running big men into stars through the pick and roll. Now he's paired with one of the most gifted passers the league has ever seen, and the benefit runs both directions. Kessler covers up plenty of Doncic's defensive shortcomings, while Doncic hands Kessler the easiest scoring chances of his career. The price, though, was steep. 2 first-round picks and 2 swaps is a heavy cost for a player coming off a major injury, and it's fair to question whether he'll live up to it. But the Lakers weren't paying for who Kessler is right now. They were paying for who they're betting he becomes. At just 24 years old, he slots in seamlessly next to Doncic and Austin Reeves, finally giving Los Angeles a long-term answer at center, the exact type of center their new franchise cornerstone had been asking for. The Kessler trade wasn't the end of it. With Smart and Kennard both gone, the backcourt had thinned out fast, so depth became the next priority. The answer was Quentin Grimes, who signed a 4-year, $60 million deal. Last season, Grimes played 75 games, averaging 13.4 points, 3.6 rebounds, and 3.3 assists on 45% shooting from the field. His three-point percentage, 33.4%, won't turn heads, but his scoring will. He dropped at least 20 points in 15 different games, including a 31-point performance against Portland. The most encouraging part of the fit might not even show up in his stats. Grimes already has chemistry with Doncic. Back in Dallas, the two of them shared the floor for a stretch where the Mavericks posted 120.7 points per 100 possessions. It's a small sample, but it's exactly the kind of connection the Lakers are betting on. Grimes also brings youth, athleticism, and defensive versatility. He can guard at the point of attack, taking on some of what Smart used to handle. He won't replicate Smart defensively, but that was never the expectation. The Lakers simply needed a younger, more balanced piece who contributes on both ends while continuing to grow alongside Doncic. Even after adding Grimes, one glaring question remained. Who runs the offense whenever Doncic sits? That was one of the Lakers' biggest issues last season. The moment Doncic hit the bench, the offense stalled out. So instead of bringing in another traditional point guard, the Lakers went out and got a scorer. Collin Sexton has built his career around one skill above all else, putting the ball in the basket, and he's only gotten more efficient at it in recent years. Last season, split between Charlotte and Chicago, Sexton averaged 15.4 points, 3.3 assists, and 2.3 rebounds on 48.5% shooting from the field and better than 40% from three. That outside shot has quietly turned into one of the strongest parts of his game. He entered the league as a downhill slasher, but he shot better than 39% from three every season since 2022, which makes him a legitimate floor spacer.
Spacer to go along with his scoring. That's exactly the profile the Lakers needed. Someone who keeps the offense functioning when Doncic rests, creates his own shot, and absorbs some of the playmaking burden that disappeared with LeBron's exit. It matters even more, considering the Lakers finished near the bottom of the league in bench scoring last season. One more detail worth noting, Sexton and Kessler already spent a few years together in Utah, so neither is walking into a completely unfamiliar situation. Together, Grimes strengthens the backcourt on the perimeter, and Sexton stabilizes the second unit. And if Grimes and Sexton address the backcourt, Sandro Mamukelashvili may be the piece that upgrades the front court. Kessler alone couldn't handle everything. The Lakers still needed a forward who could complement him offensively, add scoring depth, and give the team more options come playoff time. They believe they found that in Mamukelashvili. Los Angeles signed the 27-year-old to a 4-year, $52 million contract, coming off one of the strongest seasons of his career. Across 80 games last year, he averaged 11.2 points, 4.9 rebounds, and 1.9 assists on 52% shooting from the field, and a sharp 38.9% from three, finishing 6th in 6th Man of the Year voting. But the numbers only tell part of the story. Where Kessler's value centers around the rim, Mamukelashvili stretches the floor. He scores from the outside, attacks closeouts, and can share the front court with another big without collapsing the spacing. That value showed up even more clearly whenever he moved into the starting lineup. In his 13 starts last season, he posted 15.9 points, 2.9 assists, 1.3 steals, and knocked down better than 2 threes a game on 56% shooting from the field and 41.4% from deep.
Even coming off the bench, he upgrades a second unit that struggled to generate offense for long stretches last season. At 27, he fits cleanly alongside Doncic, Reeves, Kessler, and the rest of the new core, which in many ways sums up the entire offseason. The Lakers got different and they got younger. That shift started right in the draft, with the selection of Cameron Carr at 24th overall, a 6'5" guard whose athleticism, shot-making, and defensive upside make him one of the more intriguing young additions on the roster. He scored at all 3 levels in college, and he's already shown flashes of it in Summer League, dropping 19 points with 5 made threes in the opener against Golden State, followed by a 26-point performance in a comeback win over Miami. Whether he's ready to contribute this season or needs another year or two, the pick points in the same direction as everything else this summer. The Lakers are building toward what comes next. Kessler brings rim protection, Grimes adds perimeter defense, Sexton gives the bench another legitimate scorer, and Mamukelashvili provides front court spacing and versatility. Rather than chasing the biggest names available, the Lakers identified exactly what this roster needed and addressed those needs one at a time. And it's no coincidence that most of it lines up with what Doncic specifically asked for. There's still work to do. The Lakers have since filled their backup center need by signing 3-time champion Kevon Looney to a veterans minimum deal, and they'll likely continue searching for minimum salary additions before the season tips off. But compared to where things stood just a few weeks ago, this roster is younger, deeper, and built with a much clearer sense of direction. Whether that's enough to compete in a loaded Western Conference remains to be seen. But one thing is already certain: this is not the same Los Angeles Lakers team anymore. There's one more piece of this offseason that shouldn't be glossed over, though. Building a roster this way came at a real cost. Every move took something off the table, and none more than the Kessler deal. To land him, Los Angeles sent Utah 2 future first-round picks and 2 first-round swaps, then committed 4 years and $130 million to him. That's an enormous investment in a player with exactly 1 full breakout season and 1 serious injury on his resume. And the cost doesn't stop there. The Lakers are now committed to Doncic, Reeves, and Kessler for a combined total of roughly $475 million over the coming years. They entered free agency with more than $50 million in available cap space, and they've spent nearly all of it. The DeAndre Ayton trade brought back a bit of breathing room in the form of Jaden Hardy and 2 second-round picks, but not nearly enough to seriously reshape the roster going forward. More importantly, there's very little left to trade. No available first-round picks of their own, and just 1 remaining first-round swap. They still hold 3 second-round picks, but real roster gaps remain: a backup center and another defensive-minded wing chief among them. Now compare that to the competition. Oklahoma City and San Antonio both improved this offseason while holding on to the majority of their future draft capital. The Lakers, by contrast, have already pushed most of their chips into the middle of the table, which means this bet has to pay off. This is Rob Pelinka's first roster built entirely in the post-LeBron era, and it hinges heavily on Walker Kessler developing into the player they're betting he can become. If he grows into an elite defensive anchor next to Doncic, this trade could define the next chapter of Lakers basketball. If he doesn't, the Lakers will be left without the draft capital or financial flexibility needed to course-correct quickly. That's the gamble they've made. So, no, this isn't the same Lakers roster, and it certainly isn't the same level of risk they've carried in years past. They've stopped building around who LeBron James used to be and started building entirely around who Luka Dončić is right now. Whether that turns out to be one of the smartest resets in recent memory, or the decision that comes to define both Pelinka's tenure and Doncic's prime, we'll start getting real answers once the season tips off in October. This is Luka Doncic's team now, built around his strengths, built on his timeline, and built with the expectation that this group can genuinely compete for a championship. So, what do you think? Did the Lakers just pull off one of the smartest roster resets in recent memory, or did they give up too much trying to build the perfect team around Doncic? Let us know in the comments, and if you want to follow how this new era of Lakers basketball unfolds, consider liking and subscribing, because there's a lot more to come.